that most of us on here have heard of Developers Foundry, probably applied for the program already or heard of 1.0 and couldn't be a part of it. And we have the opportunity of hearing or to have heard about 2.0, right? So the whole idea for the info session is to answer some of your questions, to give you an idea of what to expect from 2.0, how to go about your application process, and all of those good stuff. And who better to have on this particular session except the one of our fellows 1.0. And on this call, we have Stephen Daniel. He's currently a fellow in the 1.0 cohort for Developers Foundry. And Stephen Daniel will be walking us through his process, what it's been like. I mean, the application process, what he was even up to before Developers Foundry, and all of those stuff. So yeah, in a nutshell, Stephen Daniel, how are you doing today?
I'm fine. I'm good. How are you? How are you too? Hello.
Very well, very well. Can you introduce yourself, please? Who you are?
Well, people as Favor said, my name is Stephen Daniel. I'm a Sierra Leonean, and I'm currently residing in Tokyo. And I'm a fellow, a machine learning, AI and machine learning fellow at the Developers Foundry 1.0 cohort. And I've been there, I think this is 7 or 8 months now we've been there, 6 or 7 months now we've been there. And the journey has been wonderful so far. So machine learning for me, it started as
Yeah, okay. Stephen, sorry, I'm cutting you short, right? So we're still going to get into all those details, right? So I just needed to get this brief introduction of yourself. And just before we get into machine learning and artificial intelligence, which is the learning track you applied for, what exactly were you up to? What were you doing before Developers Foundry, and how did you get to hear about the program? I mean, it was the first cohort, it was the pilot. So what were you doing? Were you already in the pipeline, which I believe you were, because everyone applying has to have at least 2 to 3 years of experience. So what exactly was you were up to, and how did you hear about the Developers Foundry program?
Okay, so for me, before joining the Developers Foundry 1.0 cohort, well, I was a student. I'm still a student, and I was I was part of a boot camp organized by UNDP, Istanbul International Center for Private Sector and Development. It was centered around machine learning. So after that boot camp, I had the opportunity of working with them as an online volunteer, as a Python tutor. So I was doing that. Then my flatmate, I think he saw this developers friendly advertisement, and that they are looking for people who are in Sierra Leone, Nigeria, and Ghana to apply for the developers foundry. So he sent me the flyer, and I applied for the program.
Oh, great, great. So would you say when you saw the flyer, just a look at the flyer, you were already convinced to apply for it, or
Yes.
was there, or could there have been something that further pushed you to say, I want to be part of this program?
Yes. So for me, I was part of the boot camp at UNDP, and part of it before that, I was into front-end web development. That was what I wanted to do. So when I saw this
Which
machine learning,
transition from front end to
yeah. So
machine
when I saw
learning?
this, when I saw machine learning boot camp by UNDP, so I applied for it and I got into it. So while going through machine learning, I got enticed in it, and I decided to make a switch to machine learning. So when I saw this flyer from Tech for Dev for Developers Fund 1.0, I was like, this is an opportunity for me to build on what I've already gotten from UNDP and to improve, and also to be able to implement real world projects. So I went to the website when I saw the flyer. I had to go to the website. I read the criteria for the application, and I was like, oh, this is what I was looking for. So I decided to apply for it.
Great, great. That sounds really great. And I mean, getting to the next bit of things, because to be honest, I know the application process was not the easiest, right? Because
Yes. Yes.
we took you all through different series of the application process where you had to do interviews, where you had to do screening and all of those. I mean, for some people, if not most, you had like coding sessions where you needed to show that the 2 to 3 years experience you claim you have, that you actually have it, right? So I would want to ask, from your own point of view, right, what would you say the application process was like for you? Was it so gruesome at some point that you almost lost interest, or you are convinced enough with how detailed it was that you still wanted to push on and complete the process. So I just want to understand what was the application process for you, and how you were able
Well,
to
the
navigate
application
that.
was very hectic, like you said. It was very gruesome for me. It was difficult. The first part of the application was kind of easy, where you have to fill in that form and go to the other part where you have to answer questions related to if you are part of a project and all that. What will you do to solve a problem? That one was a little bit of easy, but where it got difficult was where I was supposed to make a 1 minute video. That was where the difficulty was for me. So, like a video that I was supposed to make for 1 minute, I spent over an hour making that video.
Oh wow.
Luckily for me, I had a friend. I had a friend who is a YouTuber. He usually makes videos on scholarships, and we are all living together. So he was the one helping me. So like we made over 20 samples, and he was like, whichever we make, we say, no, this is not good. This is not good. It got to a point I was like, no, man, I'm tired now. So yes, like I was tired. So it got to a point and I said, no, this is what we are going with. Whether it's good or not, we are going with this one. I think the video part was the difficult part. And apart from that, I think after that one, when we were shortlisted and we were supposed to do the assessment, and I think the live coding was another one again, where you have to code live and you are like, they told you like there is an AI monitoring you. Like if you move this way, the AI
Yeah,
will, and
it
so
picks your
that
movement.
was difficult, but that one was not as difficult as making the video. I think the video part was the difficult part for me, making the video.
So why did it? I'm just trying to understand now, because you said it took you 1 hour, right,
Yes.
to come up with a 1 minute video.
Yes.
What exactly was that process of, or why do you think it got up to an hour for you to be able to get that particular 1 minute video that you think would represent what you're trying to communicate best?
Yeah, I think reason why, because the video was short. It was supposed to be 1 minute, but it required a lot. There were a lot of information I was supposed to put in that video. I had to tell people who Steven Daniel is and why do I think I'm fit for joining Developers Foundry. So it was a lot of information. I had a lot of information to put in that video. So like I will make this and it will not like, I will skip one or two things. I'll make this and I'll
Mhm.
skip one or two things. So that was why I had to take over an hour making that video, just to be able to put all of that information in that 1 minute. I think that was what made difficult for me. That was what made it difficult.
Oh, okay. Okay. I think, yeah, that provides better context to it. But through all the stages of the interview, right? Or
Yeah.
selection process, because there was the first application process you mentioned already, which was not as difficult as the rest. Which would you say was the most challenging for you, and why, through this application process and stages?
Through the application. I think it has to do with, I think it's two parts. After the application post, where you have to enter your basic information about
Mhm.
your device you are using. I think there was an assessment that you have to take. You have to take an aptitude test. After the aptitude test, I think you have to take something like a coding test or so before
Mhm.
you submit your form. Then you go to the video. I think that part was the challenging part a little bit for me, because in as much as I was ready, but like not everything in the assessment I was ready for. Much so, they were aptitude tests. So
Okay.
there are questions I couldn't answer. So that was challenging. And the time slot for submitting that assessment was very short. I think that was a challenging part for me.
Okay, okay. Yeah, yeah, that answers the question. And just for the sake of people that are just joining in now, this is an info session on Developers Foundry. And Developers Foundry is a 1 year fellowship, for mid to skill entry to mid-level engineers, right? So the whole idea is for engineers across the DevOps. We have front end, we have back end, we have mobile, we have cybersecurity, and we have the AI ML learning track. So entry level engineers that have 2 to 3 years of experience within these learning tracks, looking to scale to mid level, because we're trying to close that gap, especially in the African market, seeing that yeah, there are needs, or there are gaps that needs to be filled in each of these tracks or in each of these fields. But because we don't have as small skilled personnel as what we have, So we just decided that this program would be a good avenue to be able to build engineers that would fill in these gaps. So in a nutshell, that's what we're trying to achieve with the Developers Foundry program. And the 1.0 is currently ongoing, and 2.0 we recently opened call for applications last week, Thursday. And currently, this info session, I'm having it alongside one of our fellows from the 1.0 cohort. His name is Stephen Daniel. And yeah, so if you're just joining in, welcome, grab a snack or something. And it's going to be an interactive and chilled session. And there will also be room for you to ask questions. I mean, you can drop it in the chat if there are questions you have, if there are things you would need clarifications on from the conversations we're having today. Yeah. So Stephen, back to you again. I would want to know from your own point of view, what would you say stood your application out? Because I can tell you, we got a lot of applications for 1.0, right? So we needed to screen it down to 50 because we had 50 people that were accepted into this particular cohort. So out of the numerous people that applied, what would you think, or what would you say stood you out to be part of the 50 people that were selected to come on for 1.0?
I think for me, I think it was my experience at the time when I applied, because at the time I applied, I was an online volunteer with UNDP, Istanbul International Center for Private Sector Development. I was a Python tutor for, I think it was the second or third cohort of the boot camp for, that's a machine learning boot camp for them. So like I was a tutor for them. I had tutored, I think, 2 or 3 batches. And
Mhm.
that was part of my application. I made sure I included that in my application. And the video I made sure I emphasized on that one. And also, like I said, I'm a student, I'm doing masters. And part of my masters, my thesis I was doing is machine learning focused. So I made sure I included that one too in that 1 minute video. So I think that video helped me stand out because I put all the key informations that I think were needed
Yeah.
to be part of the developers Foundry 1.0 cohort in that 1 minute video. My experience with UNDP and being
Mhm.
a Python tutor, and also me working on a machine learning project as my thesis. And also before that, I had already built as a capstone project, I had built uh, a flooding prediction model. I also included that one in my application. I think those things were what stood my application out, I think, for me.
Okay, so if I got you right, you're saying your experiences, your hands-on experiences first off,
Mm.
and the program you are currently running as of that time. I guess that is also still ongoing.
Yeah.
And I would also say from what you've said so far, your quest to learn more, right?
Yeah.
Because it will take someone that wants to actually get to learn more to go through the process of application and even seeing the flyer for the Developers Foundry program and be interested in going ahead with that. Did that cover everything you just mentioned?
Yes, yes. And I think in addition to that, I think at that time I was applying, I was also a volunteer with the same UNDP as a community support. They wanted like to establish a local group, a local frontier tech leaders program in every country. So like I was a focal person in Sierra Leone, and also that one was part of my application. So part of my role was to support the members of the Sierra Leone community with trainings, workshops, and other things. So all of that
Mhm.
I put together was part of my application. I think that was why my application stood out. Yes.
All right. Great. So if there is that one thing that you're going to tell to um, this person that wants to get into Developers Foundry, so for Developers Foundry 2.0, that is yet to apply or is interested in knowing more or getting deeper into artificial intelligence and machine learning. So we're picking on that because that's your learning track. So if there's that one thing you're going to tell to that person that is yet to send in the application, what is that going to be? Just in a nutshell before we move on from the application stage.
Yeah, I think it has to be what you are doing. If you probably like you are working in ML, in AI or ML, probably in your office or so, or probably if you're a student, you are working on it. If you have worked on any project that you think is something that can stand you out, I think you can use that one as an example. You can use that one in your application. Like part of it, you can talk about your portfolio. your journey through machine learning so far, how far you've gone with machine learning, what you've done, and what you are currently doing. I think if you can include that one in the application, you will stand out.
All right, all right. Thank you so much for that. So just moving on from the application process. Um, so far, how has AI ML been for you? Saying that you've gone through the bootcamp phase, you've gone through the 4 months phase of upskilling, of technical upskilling, you've gone through the soft skills phase as well. How would you say it has been for you? How has it improved? How has it helped on your skills so far?
I think it has been transformational. It has really been transformational because prior to me joining, machine learning was just something I saw it and I liked it and I decided to make a switch. So it's not like it's something I learned from school, something I learned through a boot camp, and I started working on projects to develop. So when I joined the Developers Foundry, and our facilitator was so patient with us. He's so patient. Like he was able to go through with us, even why? Because you are supposed to have an experience, 2 or 3 years prior experience, so you joining. So you are not expected that you should be asking. There are questions you are not supposed to be asking because you are supposed to know the basics. But
Yeah,
yes, in as much as we are supposed to know the basics, our facilitator was so we come down to the basics. So what he will usually do for us is for every topic we'll do, he will find a research paper, give it to us to read, probably on a Friday. And when we come on Monday, we'll do a routine check. We'll ask you what you understood from it. You have questions, and I think all of that made my journey so transformational. I've improved so much because like there were lots and lots. If I say before joining, my percentage of what I knew about machine learning, probably I could say about 40, 45%, but now I can say I can do a whole lot because machine learning was what I was focused on. But now he introduced me to deep learning. In fact, most of the upskilling part was focused on deep learning. And I was able to, he introduced us to large language models. Of course, you can testify. This is what is trending now in the world of AI and ML. And all of that was not something I was that open to. Probably machine learning algorithms, I knew them, but switching to deep learning and large language models was something I had challenges with. But with the program so far, I've made significant progress. And coming from there to the soft skills, that's something I lack. I love the soft skills so
yeah.
much. My communication skill was so poor. It's very poor till now, but like
You're
the
not doing bad so far.
yes,
So
yes. The program has
yeah,
made
so we can
yes, the
implement
program
it.
has
Yeah.
made me improve a lot with the soft skills. The 1 month soft skill program was really a turnaround for me. I learned a whole lot with the soft skill. And I also learned that you are in tech, but you also have to make your social media presence known because in this kind of world we are living, you can literally get hired just by probably making a post on your social network. So
Mhm.
all that were some things I lacked. But with the fellowship, I've learned all of that and I'm making progress as we go along.
Yeah, it's good that you touched on the soft skills because I know during the soft skills bits for the 1.0, you guys had different facilitators and instructors. Were even assigned coaches, right,
Yes.
during that process. So, what would you say was your highlight? And when I mean highlight, that particular session that you say stood out for you during the soft skills training part? What was that thing you would say? I know you've touched on some things, but what was that particular session that would stay stuck with you and you see yourself riding with it through this process? And I mean, even when you're done and you say this is something tangible that I've been able to get just from that soft skills. So can you just talk to that one session that you said stood out for you during the
Yeah,
soft skills
I,
phase?
I, I think it was the first session we had with I think Abraham, where we were
Okay.
where we were talking about making I think our communicate where we talked about communication skills and also I think making
Mhm.
our yes making our how do I call it our digital I don't know how
Footprint,
yes
digital footprint.
our digital footprint, how to make ourselves known in the digital
Yeah.
world. much probably you can be the best programmer, you can be the best AI engineer, but
Mhm.
remember you have to work in a team. And at the end of the day, probably 80, 90 to 95% of the people you are working with are non-technical people. How can you
Mhm.
navigate that environment? How can you navigate that environment where you have to communicate with people in the non-technical part, where in such a way that they can understand what you are saying? So I think
Yeah.
that one was what stood out for me, and that one was that I carried home.
Yeah. Okay, so just to buttress on what you said about digital footprints, because I can remember during the conversations with the fellows for that particular session, um, we kept the facilitator then iterated, or he iterated over and over again, the importance of telling your own story, right? Shaping your own narrative. And it's really, really good that you brought it up now, because with the 1.0 cohort, what we're also trying to do is, in as much as you're getting the technical bits of things, it's also important for us to make you employable. And when we are saying employable, it's not just being technically sound, because if you're technically sound and you can't communicate with your team members, if you're technically sound and you can't have proper conversations with your line managers, or even know how to manage stakeholders, because some people think managing stakeholders just has to it's just the job of the products manager or the projects manager, whatever the case may be. In one way or the other, you would have to manage stakeholders, right? As somebody working in an organization, stakeholders in this case could be someone that is part of your project, could be your line manager, could be your direct boss, right? Because these people have a stake in that particular thing you're building. So it's really, really nice that you brought this up, because at the end of the day, soft skills are really, really important. So also, one thing I would want people that have joined the session to know is the Developers Foundry program is an intensive program. It's an intense. I mean, Stephen is here. I'm sure he can attest to it, right? So
Yes,
it's
yes,
an
very
intensive 1 year training, right? There is no fancy way to say it. You have to put in your back to
yes,
it,
yes,
literally. No
exactly.
fancy way to say it, right? Because the sessions are back to back. You heard him talk about them, the facilitators assigning them tasks and all of those that they're supposed to do, right? So these are like sometimes daily tasks, sometimes weekly tasks, and you need to get this done to end up graduating, right? So, Stephen, I would want you to speak on this. Yes, we know the program was intensive. What would you say, or how have you been able to manage that up until now? Because I know Developers Foundry is not the only thing you're doing, right? You have other things going on for yourself. How would you say
Yes.
you've been able to create a balance with what you're currently doing and while also being part of the first cohort of the Developers Foundry?
Well, it's been challenging in as much as at some points it's been easy, some parts has been difficult because like I'm doing thesis and my supervisor is kind of he gives me a lot of tasks to do, and most times I'm in his lab doing things for him, and I have to one or the other have to balance things to just make sure that I'm always here for the developers funding program. So if you know you are going to join the developers funding 2.0 and you know you are very much busy, you cannot spare your time, I think you don't have to apply, because if you have to have you have a lot to learn, a lot to learn, but also in your part you have to sacrifice your time. You have to give your time to the program. Sometimes there are projects that I have deadlines to meet and I'll fail. I've failed a lot of
Mm.
deadlines just because I have to attend classes every day and developers foundry. In as much as my volunteering I'm doing online, most times it's probably in the evening, 8 or 9 in the evening. And those times classes are over with developers funding. So that one is okay. But looking at it from the school perspective, it's been difficult having to navigate between school and developers funding. But I've always found a way to to make it work.
So there's a question I want to ask you, right? And this may seem dicey, right? Seeing how you've explained it, that it was, and I mean, it was a volunteer opportunity, not a full time job, right? That you're
Yes.
currently. So would you advise against people applying when they have full-time jobs? Would you outrightly
Uh,
advise against that? Or would you say they should find a way to create a balance? So would you
well,
say there is a way to balance?
it depends to the nature of your job. It depends to
Okay.
the yeah, it depends to the nature of your job that you have. If you know your job is that demanding, I think I would advise you not to apply for it. But if you think you can strike a balance between your job and other things, I think it's a good opportunity for you to come and upskill yourself, to learn more, to add in addition to what you already know. But if you know your job is that very much hectic, I will advise for you not to apply because let's say, for example, the bootcamp phase, you have to go to
Mhm.
5 days a week and 4 hours a day.
Monday.
Yes,
Yeah.
4 hours a day, 5 days a week. And if your facilitator, he's very much busy, but he's making time to come and teach you, then you have to make time yourself to come because you cannot tell me you are much more busy than your facilitator.
Hmm.
He had things to do, but he spared his time to come and teach you. So you also have to make that time to come. But if you know you are that much busy, I will advise you not to come. But if you know you can strike a balance between work and this and developers funding, you can
Yeah.
apply. That's why if probably you are in the field of AI or ML or back-end development or front-end development, I will advise you apply in the developers funding in those Slack because it will make things easier for you since you are working in that field and you also want to join the funding. You'll be able to strike a balance between work and this since they are going line in line. You are in the same field. You'll be able to strike a balance. But if probably you are you're a front-end developer and you want to apply for AI and ML, I will advise you not to do that because you will go off the sleep and everything will just you'll not be able to continue the program.
I mean, it's a good thing you brought that up, right? Because currently, for the application for 2.0, you need to have 2 to 3 years of experience learning track you're applying for, right? I know
Yes.
I've seen people ask questions like, I'm currently trying to transition from front end to back end, right? And they want to be part of the back end learning track with zero knowledge. So that wouldn't favor you, right? For developers foundry, right? So
So
it is advised.
if you have basic, if you like you are making a transition, but you've already started and probably you have basics and let me
Yeah,
say
and
machine
you've
learning, yeah, that one
yeah,
is okay.
yeah,
But if you
yeah. And
you
you've been
completely
able
want
to,
to transition from web development to machine learning, for example, or web development to cybersecurity, I think I wouldn't advise you to apply for the developers foundry.
yes, yes. So and you have the basics, and when we are talking about the basics here, is you have like 2 to 3 years of experience in that
Experience, yeah.
business because at the end of the year, at the end of the day, rather, 2 to 3 years of experience is also the basic. And what we are trying to do with Developers Foundry is scaling you from the basics to intermediate or mid level, right? So it is really, really important and nice that you touched on that. So if you're applying for the front end learning track, ensure that you have 2 to 3 years of experience in that particular learning track. If you're applying for the back end learning track, 2 to 3 years, also applicable for cybersecurity, AI, ML, and the other learning tracks, right? So yeah, thank you so much, Daniel, for touching on that. And now seeing that we've had conversations on how busy or demanding the program is. Can you walk us through a week, right? What's a week in would I say a week in your life during that bootcamp phase? So let's just narrow it down to bootcamp phase. Can you walk us through what an ideal week in your life was back then, just for people that are also trying to get into this process?
Yes, so for me, a week for me in the developers from the program in the bootcamp phase, it was a little bit challenging because at that time, my topic had just been approved and my supervisor would give me a lot of tasks weekly, and I have to be in the lab every day. So, but one thing I usually do is I go early in the morning most times even before he could come to the office because most times he comes at 9, 10, sometimes 11 o'clock. So I will go at 8:30. He gives me off access to his lab. So like I will go there, I'll work till 1, 2, and I will tell him that I've joined this boot camp, this fellowship. It's a 1-year fellowship, and we are through the boot camp phase, and we start at 4 o'clock Turkey time, that which is I think 2 o'clock or 1 o'clock Nigeria time, I think. I think it's 2 o'clock Nigeria time. Yes. So he will give me permission to leave at that time. So I'll always go to the lab in the morning, and in the afternoon I'll just hurry up to come to the house to join the session. And the session was really, really hectic, in as much as we had prior experience with Python, but there were advanced Python that we didn't know, and our facilitator wanted us to learn those advanced concepts, because those are the ones that will help you to write clean code, and they will help you to those are the ones that will help you to navigate the fellowship too, because when you go into the upskilling phase, you will not be asking questions again about basic Python concepts or those concepts in Python. We'll just be focusing on the core machine learning, core deep learning, and large language model concepts. So it was difficult sometimes, because I had to go to the lab and had assignment to do. Sometimes I have to bring some of the things I am supposed to do back home. After the fellowship, I will sit on it and do. If I don't finish, sometimes our facilitator will give us assignment to do. He will give us a task to do, and we have to present the next day. So sometimes it was difficult having to navigate between what I was doing in school and what I was also going to do in the boot camp. But I always found a way to always do my task, because at the end of the day, when I go back the next day, my facilitator will have to ask. The first thing you do, you have to make a report of what you did yesterday. The assignments he gives you, you have to share your screen and walk him through, and probably he will give you an example to solve, and you do it before we can start the business of the day. So that was my journey to the boot camp. And on Fridays, he would usually give us research papers, because he wasn't just focused on us learning the technical aspect. He also wanted us to learn the theoretical part, the underlying principles that power these libraries, these algorithms. He will always give us a research paper to read over the weekend, and when he come on Friday, the first thing you do, he will do a routine check. You have to report to him what you learned from the research paper. You have questions to ask him. If you don't have questions, definitely he will ask you questions, and you have to answer. If you don't answer, he'll go and review it again. He will review it again, and he will give you 30 minutes to review. After, probably we go for our first break. When we come for our first break, before we start the next session of what we are supposed to do for the day, you will have to report to him before we go further. So that was how my journey was with the bootcamp phase of the developers Foundry.
Yeah, I mean, in all of this you just said, right? Also trying to, like, somewhere in my head, understand if, would you say there was a balance for your social life with Developers Foundry and also with the work you were doing in school up until now, right? Or you'd say your social life took the back seat and you had to prioritize Developers Foundry. And
Well, I'm not that social type, in as much as I go out once in a while. But most
Mhm.
times I have Saturdays and Sundays for that. In as much, sometimes I have assignment to do and all, but I can always do that. And there has always been a balance. The social part of my life definitely probably has to be during weekends. Definitely, sometimes just going to church or hanging out with friends one or two times, probably in a month or so. But my social life has not been that much active, so it has not been that difficult for me. It has always been balancing between school and developers foundry for me. The social part has not really been a challenge for me.
Okay. All I can hear from what you just said is you had no social life. That's all I heard.
Yes.
Okay. So just to dial things back a little bit, because it's really really important for environments like this where you're learning, um, having support environments or a supportive environment or people that support what you're doing or your learning process is really really important. So would you say there was a form of support in terms of your fellows, in terms of um, even aside your facilitator, the tech for dev team? Would you say there was a bit of cushioning that was given to you? Because you understand, yes, this is intensive, but when you needed support, would you say you were able to get support?
Yes, I was always able to get support from my my classmates and also my facilitator. So whenever I
Mhm.
had a challenge, I would ask him, and probably my colleague would try his best to see how best he can try to help me fix it. And if we cannot fix it, then we can definitely send it to the facilitator. And what he normally does is he will not solve the problem for you. He will tell, okay, share your screen. And he will tell
Mhm.
you, have you tried this? If you say yes, okay, try this other method. Have you tried this other method? So like he will suggest ways for you to solve the problem, and until you get to a point where he will narrow down the problem to a point you can be able to solve it yourself. So there has always been that support from both my classmate and also my facilitator. So if my classmate cannot help me solve the problem, our facilitator will step in, and he will always guide us too. He will tell him, have you done this? Have you done this? Have you done this? And we'll go to a point. If we cannot solve it, we'll push it to the next day. He'll say, okay, go try this and this and this method. Tomorrow when we come, you report to me what you've done so far. Probably overnight, based on his suggestion, I'll be able to solve the problem. If I cannot solve the problem at all, then he will step in and we can all solve the problem together. So there has always been that kind of support.
Yeah, thank you for that answer. And Developers Foundry is designed to be an all-round training system for the fellows, right? And when I mean all-round, I mean I mentioned this already. We mean the technical bits of things, the soft skills, just like you mentioned, communication under soft skills, how you're able to hold your own, um, even up to mentorship, right? So I would want to
Yeah.
ask you. I know you've mentioned to us what your highlights are from the soft skills training, but from the technical training part, which is a really really important bit of this training, what would you say has been your highlight? And you don't need to go too technical, right? Because we have
Yeah.
people that are joining in from different fields, being front end, back end, DevOps, and the rest, right? So in AI, ML, artificial intelligence, and machine learning, what would you say? I didn't know this before, but right now I've been able to have a better grasp of this concept, right? If if I go out there, I'm sure that I'll be able to excel in this particular concept, because I've been able, my knowledge in it has been developed better with Developers Foundry. So can you just walk us through that one highlight for the technical bit of the program?
I think for the technical part, I think there are lots of highlights I can say, but like you said, I will just talk about one or maybe two. I think
Okay.
one thing I always lacked was I think it comes down again to soft skill. It has to do with communication again, communication skills, because when you are in the field of data science, definitely your communication skill has to be good, because at the end of the day, you have to you let's say your company or your manager gives you a task to analyze definitely a customer reviews, for example, a customer review, to probably go analyze that data and and communicate and make a recommendation to management as to what management should do
Mhm.
to definitely to sometimes get customers or be able to upscale your sales. In that, you have to analyze data, and part of your data analysis, when you've analyzed data, but if you don't know how to tell story, data storytelling is very key. That was something I lacked. I didn't know how to tell story, how to tell my story. I can definitely I can make charts, I can make graphs, and beautiful as they are, but communicating them was something very difficult. So that was one thing our facilitator our facilitator hinted on, made sure that we are able to tell story. We are able to tell story from data. I think that was
Yeah.
something I really, really liked. I really liked data storytelling was something I really liked because you can have all these beautiful graphs and charts and all. You can come and present to people and all. These are remember you are presenting to people who are non-technical. They don't know, they don't even know what is machine learning, probably what is deep learning and all. All they know is your recommendations, what you are able to get from that machine learning to help the business grow. So telling that story to definitely to captivate your team, to buy them in, to definitely probably if it's an investment they are seeking for, to be able to invest in that business is something I lacked.
Okay.
So that was one thing I learned through the developers foundry. Another thing again was, like I said, I was my journey was mostly focused on machine learning. The deep learning aspect was something I liked, like image processing and all. And that's something I learned through the upskilling phase. Our facilitator made sure he focused on that part of the fellowship. That was what he actually focused on. Because at the end of the day, when you are going to work in this ML, machine learning and AI fields, sometimes they won't even give you this machine learning task. They'll just give it to data analysts to do. But they will give you tasks in sometimes image processing and all. And these are things I lacked. But that was something I was able to learn through the upskilling phase. I was able to learn the deep learning aspect of it and the large language model part. Like I said, our capstone project we developed, like I told you, I think it was in our town hall, I told you, it was a chatbot we developed for Tech for Dev. I didn't have an idea of how to go about that, but he was able to walk us through that process and how to do these things in production environment because we were just focused on like developing on our local machines, probably trying to build our portfolio. The experience we had was just building our portfolio. But how to apply this in real world was something I lacked. And that was what I learned through the developers funding.
All right. Thank you so much for that context. And so, just to touch on mentorship, right? Because I know that's and it has a current ongoing phase for the 1.0 fellows. So this has been, it's not been so long the mentorship commenced, right? So for those that are going to be applying for 2.0, what would you say they would expect from mentorship? Because now they've heard of facilitators that would be taking them during the upskilling phase and the boot camp. They've also heard of coaches that took you during the soft skills phase, right? So can you just walk us through what that mentorship part of the training is all about and what is expected? I know you've not been doing it for so long, but just for the short bits you've been doing it or short period of time you've been doing it, what would you say um, participants or fellows would stand to gain from the mentorship?
Yeah, I think for me, the mentorship session so far, it's all about like getting you ready for the real world. Like you will be
Mhm.
going into the real world. What is expected of you when you are in the real world? How are you expected to act in the workplace? And if you have difficulties, what are these things you have to do to to solve the problems that you'll be having? I think that's what the mentorship is all about. Like we have conversations with our mentor based on the day-to-day things that probably they do in their office, the day-to-day things we do in our office. Like you said, the mentorship is going along with the project phase, in as much as the project phase has not fully started yet. But for me, on my mentor, we are supposed to meet once a week, according to Tech for Day. But what my mentor did was he drafted a roadmap for me for 3 months, wherein he said, okay, he asked me, what are your strengths and what are your weaknesses? So I stated what are my strengths so far through the boot camp and what are my weaknesses. So in my weakness, what he did was he picked out one of them and he developed a 3 month roadmap for me. So what we do basically is we meet 3 times a week. We are supposed to meet one, like the fellowship said, but he made it 3 times a week. We meet 3 times a week, Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays, 1 hour every day. So what we do on Mondays is like in the roadmap, you have tasks. I have tasks to do. I have to go read papers, and Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday, Thursday, I have to read those papers, watch tutorials, and implement what I've read. And over the weekend, there is always a task for me to do. And what I'll do over the weekend, on Monday, that's what we'll be discussing. We'll discuss on, I'll present to him what I've done so far. And if I have questions, I will ask him and he will answer. And if he also has questions, he will ask me. If I'm not able to answer, he will guide me on where he thinks I am lapping, where I'm making progress and where I'm not making progress. On Wednesdays, we'll talk about what we are supposed to do for the week, the task I'm supposed to do for the week. And whatever question I have in the industry, like for example, I'm now in the AI and ML industry. So any development in the AI ML industry, something I have doubt with, I can ask him. So we'll talk about that on Wednesday. And on Friday, I'll talk about what I have read so far as part of the roadmap. What I have done so far, I will make a report to him. Okay, I've read XYZ, and this is what I understand. This is what now we'll discuss on that in that 1 hour. Like I said, over the weekend, I will do the task I'm supposed to do for that week. And on Monday, I will just present that task and discuss it. So if you are joining, these are some of the things you should be expecting in the mentorship phase. Probably the things that the development in your learning track, what's currently in your learning track, how are you able to navigate in the workplace in your learning track, and definitely if you have challenges with whatever you have, then you can ask your mentor and he will guide you through. That's what you should be expecting.
All right, thank you so much for that, Stephen. So just before we go on, we'll be wrapping um, this up a few minutes from now. So if you have any questions, things you need clarifications on, in line with the application, when it's supposed to close, what is expected from each step, right, or each phase. If there are things you still need us to spell out that you don't have proper understanding of yet, please make use of the chat box in the YouTube live, right? So just leave your questions there. We'll go right there to pick it up and address some of them at the end, right? So we have like 3 more questions to go. So before we wrap this up, do well to leave your questions there so we can address them before calling today. Yeah. Stephen, yeah. So thank you for that response. My other question now would be, seeing what you've been able to achieve so far with Developers Foundry 1.0, the knowledge you've been able to gain, the um, I would say connections you've been able to make as well, right, with other fellows and impacts you've been able to gain. Would you say there was any form of giving back on your own end, right, from the fellows' standpoint? Because what we're also big on at Tech for Dev is not just like making impacts, right? That's something we're really big on. So, would you want to touch on the community outreach? Because that was something that was carefully infused into the Developers Foundry program.
Yes, I think there was a giving back time. There was a time when we were supposed to carry out community outreach. We are supposed to go to schools, churches, mosques, whatever community to talk to youth regarding tech. So we are supposed to go to communities or schools or to talk about to talk to these young fellows who are coming up about tech, who are probably might be interested in making a career into tech. So there was definitely a point where we were supposed to go back to the communities to give back what we've earned so far from the Developers Foundry. And each and every fellow were supposed to either you can do it individually or you can go by group. You can go to any institution, you can apply, and there was a process we are supposed to go to, and you go to that institution, make a presentation, tell people basically about tech, about the digital, tell people about tech and what they are supposed to do. Basically, probably when they are online, it could be in the area of cybersecurity. How are they supposed to protect systems online? Those are things we are supposed to go back to the community and teach those people. And I think that was a giving back time. There was a point
Yeah.
in the fellowship where we went to the communities to do that.
Okay. Yeah. Thank you for that response. So just to buttress your point as well. So there's going to be like community outreaches, and the great thing about this is, yes, in as much as you're gaining so much value from your facilitator, from your mentors, from your coaches, right? We also try to create a pipeline where you get back to, yeah, I would call it giving back, because for some of the fellows during this process, I mean, as a program manager looking at all of this surface, there were some people that this was their first time interfacing, right, with, say, students in a classroom, right, because of the community outreach. For some people that did it in the churches or that did it at the mosques or even their community centers, this was the first time interfacing with those or with that number of people, right? So at the end of the day, with Developers Foundry, just to reiterate what we've been saying all the while, this is a program that is going to shape you all around, right? So from
Yeah,
the
yeah,
technical bits, yes, from the technical bits of what you would have selected if you're going for the front end or the back end, up onto your soft skills, up onto your employability, right? Because I know for the soft skills phase, we had sessions that addressed where we brought in HR professionals and they addressed what your CV should look like, how you should attend interviews, how you're able to position yourself to get some of these opportunities, right? So yeah, so just bringing things to a close, Stephen, I would want to say thank you so much for doing this with us so far. But would you say um, there are some things you wish you knew before applying for Developers Foundry program? And if there are any things, could you just walk us through one or two?
Mm, well, if if there was something I knew before joining the Developers Foundry, what could that be?
Yeah, so this could be maybe something technically related, soft skills related, or a better approach that
Yeah,
you probably did not
yes,
know before joining the program.
yes,
Yeah.
yes. I think I get it now. I think something I wish I knew before joining the Developers Foundry. I'm speaking for my learning track was uh
Mhm.
was like in machine learning you have to know programming, and you also have to your soft skills as well. You have to, like I said, data storytelling. You have to be able to express yourself, because if you cannot express yourself, then you cannot. But something key was the aspect of mathematics. If
Okay.
there was anything I wish I knew better before joining, was having a grasp of of basic mathematical concepts like the area of calculus and all. Those were the things I wish I knew better before joining Developers Foundry, because those were some of the challenges I was facing when we are going into area of deep learning, and how the underlying the things that were powering these models and all. If because I lacked area of, let me say, calculus, transformation, those things. I found it difficult sometimes to understand. So my facilitator had to spend extra hours having
Mhm.
to teach just for me to understand, to be able to catch up with what he's trying to say. So if I wish I knew was mathematics, I wish I knew I had a strong background in area of mathematics before joining the Developers Foundry.
Would you say your mathematics is any better now?
Yes, it wasn't that poor, but like
Okay.
I didn't know. I had difficult. It's been long. I did mathematics. I left high school.
Mhm.
I've forgotten about mathematics, and when we are doing this, there is this advanced calculus you have to do in the area in this machine learning and deep learning and
Yeah.
all. There are advanced calculus you have to do, and those are the things I have forgotten. But now with the fellowship, I think I know better now.
All right. Great. Great.
I've made
One
significant progress.
Okay, okay. So I think I have just two more questions, then we'll wrap this up. One would be, what would you say to that person right now that qualifies for every, would I say, metric, or that qualifies to apply for Developers Foundry, but is still having a second thought? This person has the time to actually be part of this program, but they are still maybe dragging their legs to apply, what's that one thing you're going to say to that person?
I would tell them to give it a shot because it's really worth it. In as much as probably you have all the you meet all you have all the metrics, you meet all the criteria to apply. There are
Yeah.
definitely things you miss, you lack. Like for example, in the area of techno in the tech field, one thing we lack in the tech field is the soft skills, having to communicate. Probably you can be the best
Mhm.
programmer in the room, but you cannot communicate what's your skills to the real world. So if you're having doubt, I think Developers Funding is the place for you to come and you can get all of what probably you are lacking right now in your field. Even if you have all that it takes, there are things that you will definitely gain from the Developers Funding. So I will encourage you to to not give it a second thought, but to come in and apply because there are lots and lots and lots and lots of things you will learn. Like I said, I was very terrible at public speaking, and communication skill was something I had challenges with. But with Developers Foundry, I've been able to make significant progress. I can make pitches even as much as I do it to myself or to my friends at home, but I've been able to make significant progress with that. And I think if you join the Developers Foundry, you have a lot to gain.
Yeah, I would say kudos to you, right? For communication, you're doing really great because this is almost an hour communication,
Mhm.
right? And you're doing perfectly well. So, one question to wrap this up would be, um, what do you see yourself doing with the knowledge you've gained so far, right, in the long run? And how do you think it will position you as an AI ML expert, right, in this career path? What do you intend to do with all of this knowledge you've been able to gain?
Well, for now, presently, I intend to use what I've gained so far to definitely get a job and be able to implement to solve problems to solve real world challenges, real world problems. And what I've learned so far has actually helped me a whole lot in even my thesis I'm doing because there are lots and lots of things I was supposed to I'm supposed to do in my thesis that I didn't know before. My supervisor could just say, this is how I want you to go about this. And
Mhm.
sometimes probably what I knew before, how I wanted to do it was not how I knew it. I like, in machine learning, there are a lot of libraries you can use to probably model this, to make you predictions, to make these image classifications and all. But with what I've learned from the developers funding, I've been able to be able to apply it in real world, not like without even using these libraries. I can implement machine learning models. I can implement models without having using the library. So these are things that I've learned, and I intend using them in the long run to be able to position myself in the job market. And I think it has given me a lot of edge in the market. The things I was lacking before, I've made significant progress in them, and I think I will use them in the long run in my professional career.
All right. Thank you so much, Stephen, for doing this alongside us. And so just to do a recap, right? Because today, what we wanted to achieve with this info session is for Stephen to basically walk us through, which is what he has done, what the processes have been like for him, from the application bit of things to doing the assessments and getting into the program, the boot camp, the upskilling phase, the soft skills phase, up onto the mentorship phase, which is what he's currently doing for the Developers Foundry 1.0. So this is Developers Info Session for Developers Foundry 2.0. Applications are currently open for persons across the front end learning track, the back end, AI ML. We have mobile, we have DevOps, and we have cybersecurity. So 6 learning tracks, and this time around, it's for persons residing in Nigeria and Ghana. Right. So if you meet any of these criteria, you need to have 2 to 3 years of experience in any of these learning tracks. and you need to reside in either Nigeria or Ghana to be able to apply for Developers Foundry 2.0. And I'm sure, I mean, this feels like a testimonial right now from what Stephen has been able to share with us. You see reasons why you need to be part of this program. And of course, tell people this is not knowledge you want to hold or keep by yourself. Share with your friends, share with your colleagues, share with people around that you think would benefit from this opportunity. And lastly, application closes 17th of July. And don't be one of those people that, because I know people that want to wait till the 15th or 16th of July to start applying. Don't be that person, right? So try to, because the pressure is definitely going to be more. And just like Stephen had mentioned, the application process is a lot. So you want to start now. This is the time to start. Start preparing your application. You need to send in a video. There is also an assessment that you need to do, right? So the best time to start is now and start processing your application so that in when due, between now and maybe next week, you're able to send it and you're not under pressure to send when everybody's trying to push the applications. So yeah, with that, that would be a wrap for today's info session. Stephen,
Yeah,
Daniel, thank you once
yeah.
again for
Before
coming.
you wrap, I wanted to ask a question regarding the experience. So what does experience mean to you? Do you mean you have to have the on-the-job experience, or probably because in tech, probably some people probably, I know some people are freelancers and some just
Yeah.
have a portfolio. They have been working in that field, but they are not currently working. What do you probably mean by experience, 2 or 3 years experience? Is it on-the-job experience, or it can be a portfolio experience? What
So,
are
so
the
when we, yes, so when we refer to experience, we are referring to hands-on experience, right? So hands-on experience being you've been able to build projects or products in line with that particular learning track.
okay. So
You've
even
been
if
able to
even if
work alongside
if
the
it's
team.
just even if it's just your portfolio, even you are not
Yeah,
working, that was what I
yes,
wanted to know. Because
yeah, as
probably
long as we can see that track. Yeah.
there might be people who have been working in that field but are not currently working, or have never worked in their entire life in that particular field, but they have been learning and they've been building projects. So that was what I wanted to know, if that's what experience means to you.
Okay. I mean, as long as we can see you have a track record of actually working. So, for instance, right, if you're a back-end developer, as long as we can see a track record of what you've been able to work on over that period of 2 years, because you'll be asked to send in your portfolio,
Yeah,
right? And we
definitely.
would have experts reviewing this application. So, if we're going through that and it doesn't look solid enough, you may not be considered. So, it is really important that you have 2 to 3 years of experience already prior before applying. So, yeah.
Okay.
That answers your question, right?
Yes.
All right. Thank you so much again, Stephen, for doing this alongside us.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for giving me the opportunity to share what I've learned so far.
All right. That will be it for now. Let's enjoy the rest of